So we have a special treat. You know, we're all talking, obviously, it's a highly political moment, to say the least. And we have how many of you know who Pramila Jayapal is, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal? Well, I don't know if you're aware, but Pramila has a long-term relationship with Bioneers. She used to live out here and was a long-term activist before she ran for Congress, where she's continued to be an activist and doing some of the most important work around immigrant rights, around the children in cages, around the Green New Deal. I mean, so many issues that she's, and of course, impeachment. Can I get a... So Pramila has very graciously provided us with a 6.5-minute video that's a message to us here at Bioneers, because she knows so many of us and knows who we are and what we do, and so it's with great joy that we show you a little video from Washington, D.C.
Hello, dear Bioneer friends. I'm so sorry that I can't join you in person, but I want you to know that my spirit is completely with you. The work you are all doing is so important, and I'm honored to have worked alongside so many of you and so many of the speakers today in standing up for our planet, for our people, and for our most basic human needs of interconnectedness, justice, and a better future. I especially want to thank Nina for her tremendous leadership, her friendship, and the invitation to address you by video. It seems like just yesterday that thanks to Nina, our Unreasonable Women's Group was meeting and plotting in the early 2000s on how we would take on some of the most important issues facing us. From that came going down to Texas and supporting Diane Wilson as we all undertook a hunger strike against Dow Chemical and the dumping of toxins into the Bay, and also the birth of Code Pink by Medea and Jody. And shortly after that, my own work to start and lead what would become the largest immigrant rights organization in Washington state and one of the largest in the country. Here we are today, still putting forward our generous and loving vision of a better future and taking on the biggest threats to justice to all of us, from white supremacy to corporate supremacy to individual supremacy. Here in Congress, I've been fighting every day against these three supremacies, from helping to lead the movement for immigrant justice and against the horrific separation of immigrant kids from their parents, to taking on the insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies that have turned our healthcare system into one that puts profits over patients, to standing up for the LGBTQ equality as the proud mom of a non-binary kid, to fighting institutionalized racism and white supremacy that have led to horrific mass shootings across our country. I don't see these issues as disconnected. I see these supremacies as being completely intertwined, and nowhere is that more clear than in taking on the existential threat of climate change. If we are to grapple with this existential threat, I believe that we have to shift our thinking and our rhetoric around climate change, not talk about it as something that's happening to our planet and separate from us, but rather to climate justice, an idea that recognizes we are all intimately interconnected, that human actions have caused climate change, that we come from this earth, and that many of our kin have been disproportionately facing climate injustice for decades without even a public recognition of that burden. Indigenous, coastal, people of color, workers who work in the fossil fuel industry, and other frontline communities have historically not had a voice in our extractive economic and political system, nor have they, too often, had a seat at the table in determining the solutions and the resources that will be required to address the deep and destructive impacts of generations of economic, racial, and environmental injustice. But here is the thing. What we have learned over the last many years is that these frontline communities know the problems best, and they have an intimate knowledge and relationship with the land and the ecosystems that they are a part of. They have expanded our vision, our wisdom, and our collective movement. And the broader our movement is, the more likely we are to achieve real climate justice. Our young people across this country who are leading so much fantastic organizing around the world are unflinchingly calling us out and calling us in We simply cannot fail them. We cannot fail our future generations. We cannot fail our planet, and we cannot fail us. Last week, I met with one of my constituents, Audrey Piper, one of the youth plaintiffs in Juliana v. United States, the lawsuit where 21 youth from across the country are suing the federal government for its role in knowingly supporting policies that have contributed to climate change. I was so inspired by Audrey, and I'm looking forward to helping to lead some actions that put the force of Congress behind this lawsuit. We have to rise and organize, taking on the political and economic systems that have focused on extraction and accumulation of wealth and power for a few at the expense of the masses. And we have to build powerful, healing communities around the vision of the world that we want and need. Let me end with this. I know these are not easy times. We are truly in one of the most serious moments that we have ever faced in our country's history. For many of you in the room, I know that it too often feels like we are taking so many steps backward with real harm being done to millions of people around the world. These ruptures are real, but here's what I think about when I see those ruptures around us. Ruptures mean that things are erupting, breaking through the earth, and coming out from the darkness into the open. When that happens, as painful as it might feel, remember that now we can see clearly what was previously underground, hidden in the darkness. Now we can organize and strategize around how to take on those dark forces that had a light shone on them. Now, with the light of that rupture, we can also train the force of our movement's brilliant talent and organizing ability to build an even bigger movement that makes what may seem impossible possible. Bioneers is the center of all of that, and I know that this room is filled with people who think carefully about the systems we live in, learn from nature how to develop solutions that bring our society back to balance, and bring that heart-centered movement to the forefront. For that, I am deeply grateful. You have a critical role to play in this movement, and I intend to be right there with you as we bring everything we have to this movement for climate justice and peace around the world.